Hi everyone, welcome to the Sunday Social. Joined by the panel today. This should be a lively one and hopefully a lot of fun. So make sure that you're getting involved in the comments as well and let us know your opinion. Should we kick it off with a wristwatch check? Mark, you're actually in the hot seat.
So I have my Omega Seamaster chronograph GMT.
Wow.
Which is fresh from having a new adjustable clasp fitted. So now it fits perfectly. It came so close to selling it because it didn't fit. But with the small addition of some dollars and a new clasp, it's staying. I took it out of rotation, decided I'd missed it, and then spent the dollars to make it fit.
Oh, that's always cool too, because you might have took a hit selling it at this.
Oh, of course I take a hit selling it. I mean, I am the only person who bought one. Nobody likes a Seamaster chronograph.
It answers a question nobody asked.
Yeah, exactly.
Dave, what are you wearing?
What is Dave wearing? Dave is wearing his Girard Perregaux.
Very nice.
What's it called again? I can't remember.
Infinity.
Laureato Infinity. That's what we're looking for. Yeah, Laureato Infinity. So this is the one with a black onyx dial, and it has got a pink gold appliques and second hand, and if we turn around, a pink gold rotor.
Very nice.
Very nice
as well.
Very
pretty
nice.
skinny. 10.8, I think it is. So it's relatively slim. It does come on the bracelet, but that is the Girard Perregaux rubber strap, which I actually prefer. And their clasp is quite nice as well. It's like a little double butterfly job. It's got like a second release there. It's quite nice though, because it's got these wee little buttons to release it, so you can lock it, and then you should just press these two to release it. So you're not fighting with it. And again, it clips there, and then you've got the buttons here to release it as well. So yeah, it is a nice one. Nice little feature about it as well is you get the big square of onyx that they've cut your dial out of. So you get like the big square, and then you get the hole missing from it that where they've cut the dial out of it. So yeah, it is quite a nice little toy, that one. So
I really like that Infinity collection they did. It's really nice styles. Really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, small numbers as well. I think they did 188 of the steel one.
Right.
I think they did 88 of the rose or the pink gold one, and they did 88 of the smaller steel one, but it's got diamonds in the bezel, so it's a bit tacky. But yeah, so it's still relatively small numbers.
Yeah, Von Quill's right. Dave always seems to have a stunner.
He always has a stunner on his arm.
Just you wait till I get stripped off, then I'll just everything gets disappointing after that.
Awesome. Thomas.
So I've got an unboxing. It's a new watch. Just received it on Friday, and it's an icon. That gives it away.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, that is so rare.
Yeah,
so rare that you actually got it.
It's iconic. It's my new spaghetti scametti in a.
Oh, I bet you that's like Dave's Gerald Genta designed watch from Girard Perregaux, but at half the price or less.
More iconic.
If it's only half the price, it's been well done.
It's I haven't saved the bracelet yet though, but it's they're going at 75% off at the moment, so grab yourself a bargain at £25. So yeah, it's the pinnacle of my collection at the moment. So
it's cheap at twice the price.
Absolutely. Get it on wrist.
Yeah, just be careful you don't cut yourself. It's quite sharp the side of that bracelet.
It's 75% off. It is still cheap at half the price. That is actually literally true.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Wow. That's
iconic.
That's going to be tough to beat, Todd.
Yeah. That's the best watch of the year according to the makers of it. Take Todd.
Well, they cut out the middleman. That's why. So I have probably so far the only non-Gerald Genta designed or inspired watch, but it goes along with what we're talking about. I brought back my Longines Big Eye chronograph.
Nice.
Lovely.
With the it's got the I'm trying to think the blue dial, but it's the gradient
Sanium one.
petroleum. Yeah, the petroleum dial is what I was looking for. On a
Looks good.
Nice leather strap.
Very nice.
Thank you. And boy, oh boy, it's a titanium. It's a nice piece.
Awesome.
Which they don't offer anymore. I just looked too on their site. They don't have it. I didn't know they discontinued it.
Really?
Oh,
I didn't see it.
I mean, that was only briefly out then, wasn't it?
I'm looking on their Longines site since I'm talking about Longines today, and I do not see it. But
yeah, maybe they've
investigations.
Yeah. Maybe they're converting all their production line to making that Tudor homage.
Well, I understand that Spaghetti Scametti. Well, I understand Spaghetti Scametti has kind of taken over part of the assembly line for their mass success of the icons. So instead of Spirit, we have Icon.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's the way it is. Yeah,
good point there. I was scrambling around to try and find a watch that I was wearing, but if I'm being truthful with myself, I've been wearing all day the Timex, the T80. In all of the footage, in all of the press images on their website, the LCD looks like it's silver backed, but for some reason it's green. It's I got it in thinking, would I like it? And I do like it. I changed the strap out, but there you go. And the other watch that I've got on my desk here will form part of our discussion topic today, which is we're going to pick a watch trend that we think will either grow or decline in 2024, and also a watch brand that's either on the rise or on the decline. And I think this will be quite good for some audience participation. So don't forget, guys, to let us know your opinions in the comments below. So I won't go first, but who wants to go first? I think Dave might need to go last, just because I think his is quite a his first one might be quite the discussion topic. But I don't know, Mark. Do you fancy kicking us off with your first one? Is it the first one being a trend, either one you think is going to go up or one you're going to go down, or maybe you've got two?
A trend that has declined, thankfully, is green dials.
Boo!
I've just bought one.
There are some exceptions, but green was so 2022. And there are still some nice green dials being released. There was the green Seamaster with that lovely Lincoln green, but not, and I think it's reached its baseline. There will be some in the collections, but green dials, they're not 2023's color, and they probably won't be 2024's color either. I think actually it was unusual that a single color managed to dominate a year. If anything, for 2023 it was purple, but there were nothing like the purple dials compared to last year for green dials. And green dials this year, relatively unusual. So
I do remember.
I don't think they'll disappear forever, but they're no longer the hot trend.
That's fair.
I do remember IWC bringing one out of Watches and Wonders, a nice gold pilot's watch with a green dial. But yeah, you could be right, Mark.
Yeah,
I think green's no longer the hypey in color.
It's no longer the it color, is it?
No, I mean that. I think, to be fair though, that I think 22 was the back end of green being in the hyper color. I think through 23 we've definitely seen actually quite, purple tried to break through, didn't quite, but there was plenty of purple watches, but it didn't make the mainstream in the way green did. It's always been black dials, white dials, silver dials, and to a lesser extent blue dials, were there, and green seemed to have made its way into the kind of most brands and most ranges in the same way as blue had. There was as many blue as there was green dials. And I don't think it's going to grow, but I don't think it'll necessarily drop off so much. I think you'll still have green's become a core color, I think, for many brands, whereas it wasn't previously. Purple tried, it'll never be a core color, and any of the punchy colors will never be, or are unlikely to be, never say never, are unlikely to be core colors. I think green was the one that was missing as a core color.
Okay.
Yeah, red's too punchy. Yellow, the same.
Yeah.
I think green was probably the last color that had a chance of a permanent place in most brands' collections somewhere.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think it wasn't until probably 19 that started. Most brands didn't have anything green that wasn't a special edition, limited edition, or something of that ilk.
Yeah. Also, I think that green dials they vary quite a lot, don't they? In types of green, don't they? You've got like pistachio, Breitling does, right up to like Fears has that real dark green, and then my Rolex is like a mint green. So there's a lot of variance, isn't there? I mean, I suppose you get that with blue as well, but not so. Most people stick to the darker side of the blue spectrum, don't they? With the exception of the
green gives you a little bit of flexibility, but it tends to look better in the darker colors. The Lincoln green that's on the Green Seamaster, the Hunter green that Christopher Ward used briefly. Very nice greens, but they're never going to be, they'll be part of the range, I think. But you're not going to see a new green watch every week again, I don't think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Also, I suppose that a lot of the greens are also used for like to invoke like a military aesthetic, aren't they? As well, I think so. I know some brands probably stick away from that, so they don't, look too much like a military watch. Whereas there's definitely military watches like Elliott Brown that really lean into that dark military green.
I do think that Seaweed Master was the nicest color. They did the Green Seamaster.
Oh, you've got that one, Mark.
That's a really dark green, isn't it? It almost looks black. Almost looks black.
If you ever did archery in the UK, the Grand National Archery Society in the UK used Lincoln green.
Yeah.
And it's very, very close to this green.
Oh, let's get you on solo.
Very dark.
Very dark, yeah.
Yeah,
Mark,
it's not like part of a British racing, is it? Green.
Yeah, you've been in the States too long if you're saying was it Lincoln green? Lichen, you mean? Is it Lichen
Lincoln.
we're going for here?
No, L-I, as in the town, Lincoln.
Ah, I thought you were trying to say Lichen.
No,
that's Christopher Ward's, isn't it? That's a lighter green, the Lichen, Christopher Ward Lichen green. Also, is it a werewolf in the Underworld films? So, well, actually, we've got some good comments. So, Brassic Time says Breitling just released a green dial 57. And then Darkstar says Cartier Santos is gorgeous in green. Whole Milk says Oris Kermit was the high point for green.
No,
definitely green.
It was definitely green, but
I agree. It's a great green. No two ways about it. It's a cool watch.
Von Krull says my Oceanus T200. It has a deep green dial that I enjoy. I'd love to get one of those Oceanus in, actually.
And Chili Badger loves his spaghetti scametti green like I do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, Thomas, let's go to you next. What was your trend?
My trend, I think the continuation of downsizing is going to be carry on for next year. 2023 had a lot of brands that catered to people who wanted smaller watches. There's the TOP RX 36, the Christopher Ward 1236, the Tudor Black Bay 54, which went down to 37 mil, the Black Bay 36, which was a sort of dress watch style, the London's Legend Diver that went down to 39 mil, and I was in a Teams meeting with a watch group last night, and a friend who runs a watch brand who make 44 mil watches. I mean, we've had a couple of decades of big watches, and his brand that makes 44 mil watches, he's going to start making a 40 mil watch due to demand next year. So just goes to see, I can see this trend continuing of smaller watches for next year, definitely.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't like it, but I think you're right.
I think you're right, Thomas, too. And I don't like it, but I am grateful for it because it means watch brands are making watches I'm not going to buy. So therefore my bank account is safer. You just look for the small mercies at that point.
Yeah, that is a good point, actually. Yeah, no,
it's making it accessible for unisex watches as well, I think,
that's
which is
true.
a good thing. Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, I know that. I know there's a couple of brands that I work with that are expanding their
Good to bring
range.
women
of
into the
course.
hobby. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Seiko Todd, what was your trend, either up or down?
My trend. So I'm thinking that going out a little bit on a limb, perhaps, is that I think dress watches are making a comeback, or at least ones that can pass as, let's say, an everyday wear / dress watch, and you can change the strap, or you can put it on off a bracelet, on a bracelet, that sort of thing. I'm seeing it across the ranges where it's so much hype has been involved with the tool watches and things associated with Rolex kind of drives, and I think and Audemars Piguet kind of drives and that sort of thing. I think we're going to see some more shift back to more classically styled dress watches. And I think that it also helps explain a little bit why Cartier has kind of upped the ante in terms of where they sit now in the Morgan Stanley rankings. So they're number 3. They jumped ahead of Omega. And they don't make a quote unquote sport watch. You can argue the Santos is a pilot's watch in some ways, right? But I mean, in terms of its current use, it's not. Cartier Tank obviously is classic. And the Pasha, and there's some other interesting ones that I actually kind of like. I kind of like the esoteric Cartiers. I don't own a Cartier, but I wouldn't mind having one of the kind of odd ones at some point. But anyhow, why Cartier must be selling the heck out of their lineup, and none of them are a quote unquote tool watch or a sports watch, in my opinion. So I think we're going to see more of this.
Cartier went from this year brought out the Santos Dumont, didn't they? Which is on a leather strap, which is much more dressy than the bracelet Santos. I think, which is shows that they are going more dressy in style. I think definitely.
Yeah.
Let's pull that one up so everyone we can do a bit of a show and tell here. It's the Dumont. This one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good looking watch.
It is a nice looking watch. I've
Really
been watching that Billions, that TV show. I don't know if anybody else has watched it, but I came to it late. I think it started in 2016, but it's absolutely fantastic. And Damian Lewis's character in that wears the Cartier, but the one that's got I forget the name of it, but the one that's got the Cyclops on it, but that's more aerodynamically shaped. I forget which one it is, but and he really wears the hell out of it. And considering he's like a billionaire, I think it goes quite well with it. Yeah, I think you might be right there, Todd. Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Actually, I've got a question for the panel. I've never owned one, but a lot of YouTubers talk about the Orient Bambino being amazing. I noticed Britt Pierce did it the other day in her. She did like a special mention to it. I've never owned a Bambino, so I don't know if it is as good as everyone says. Has anyone ever owned one?
It's a good watch.
Yeah,
I've seen them. I've held one. They were a smaller one. I think they 38, right? I think they're 38s. Right. A heck of a watch. I'm a huge fan of Orient in general, and I think they do that at that price range better than anybody. I don't think
they are very good.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll go, and then we'll go to Dave because I think Dave's got some quite good ones. So my one is that I think will die off. Not that it was a bad trend. I think it was a very good trend, but this was sent in for review. But I'm going to say the dial that might be similar to the blue used by a Popper Jewelry Company, so I don't get sued. But the Tiffany blue dial, here it is on the edifice, and this is $170 watch. And I think that now that it's on one of these watches, it's very accessible now. I think that even though it's I think it was a colour of the moment, is what I'm going to say. I like it, but I don't think it's going to. I mean, we'd have to wait till next summer to see whether the trend persists. But I don't think I think the Tiffany dial might be. I don't think there'll be many more watches that come out with Tiffany blue dials, or dials that are similar.
I think for the teal, when Jody was talking about his Erebus watches, he said, the three biggest sellers were the black, the white, and the blue. And I think he said that the teal was fourth out of the 8 colors he offered.
All
So
right.
it's still a very popular color.
I don't know what Sam D's saying. Stephanie will take. Stephanie will take Tiffany's place. Maybe that's it. Do you
Stephanie
get
Blue?
Stephanie Blue.
Who did Stephanie Blue?
I don't get it.
Who was it?
Somebody
I'm trying to think.
didn't they? Somebody did
Oh,
the
it's going right out of my head. Stephanie Blue was. Oh, it's Studio Underdog.
Yeah, that's right. Their new
Their new field watch, the blue, which has got that color. He calls it Stephanie Blue.
The new field watch. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Oh well,
which is it's a tongue-in-cheek, obviously jibe, because it's a blue loomed dial, but it's got this kind of Tiffany-esque hue to it, albeit a different color. But they calls it Stephanie Blue. That's where I've seen it.
Yeah, awesome. So we were expecting Pete to join. If anybody, if you think that there is a square missing, so hopefully he's okay. He might join later. Dave, go on, hit us with your trend for the up or down trend.
Sadly, it is a trend that's coming, and it started a few months ago, and it is coming, and it's going to hurt, and it is price increases. And they are coming through like a freight train, and it ain't going to stop anytime soon. And it's not all been driven. Many people are just like typical Swiss brands, put the price up, put the price up, put the price up. And people will have noticed that many brands who maybe put their price up once a year are now doing it 2, maybe 3 times a year. Other brands that did it twice a year are doing it more. And sadly, that's going to continue, and it's not going to get any easier. And watches that a few years ago cost 4,000 or 5,000 will not be far away from 10,000 within another 12 months. And that's not a trend that's going to be fun for anybody, but it's coming. And genuinely, if any of you have something you have in mind and you're getting there with the money, don't hang about too long, because it is just going to get more expensive. What's driving it? The value of the Swiss franc is the primary driver, because its exchange rate against pretty much every major currency, whether it be dollars or the pound or the euro or anything else, the Swiss are panicking now because they cannot get it under control. It's becoming so strong that everything the Swiss have to buy is costing them more, and they will quite happily pass that on to the consumer. Markets are also becoming depressed because of inflation. The Swiss don't understand really the concept of inflation like the rest of the world at the moment, but everyone else has got inflationary costs. So volume is dropping as well. And as volume drops, they push their price up again to try and maintain the bottom line and the profit line. So everything is going against prices either stabilizing or indeed coming down. Let's be honest, they never come down, but they certainly aren't going to stop going up for the foreseeable future, and it's going to get pretty horrible. And once they're at the price point that they go to, they ain't ever really going to come back down much further either. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, because watch prices are like car park charges, aren't they? They never go down. They always go up. Chili Badger said this straight away. I think the most glaring example of this has been JLC, hasn't it, over the last
40
years?
They went up by, didn't they?
I was actually. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say, I think SJ in the comments there saying, some inflation is coming down and prices are coming down. To be fair, inflation isn't coming down; it's just not going up anymore. Like the UK has managed to hold its interest rate for 3 months in a row now, but it's not dropping yet. And certainly most of the central banks have said that don't expect it to drop for the next 9-12 months. Additionally to that, yes, consumables, food prices, fuel, these kind of things have pulled back a little bit. The biggest problem the Swiss have got is the Swiss franc. It was 125 a year ago. It's now 95. I mean, that's a massive swing percentage-wise. And that means that everything for them in terms of raw materials is costing them around a third more. And that just gets passed straight on. That's their biggest driver. Also, there's been some quite interesting reports just recently with some older senior executives of the Swiss watch industry who have been there and seen it, saying the Swiss watch industry is slowly walking into a nightmare scenario for itself. And aside from everything to do with price, their general arrogance of their position is another big issue they have for them as well. So they don't see the problem with just increasing prices.
I was in my local high-class mall over the weekend, and looking at watches simply for something to do, and they were going as far, all the 6 or 7 watch brands were just going, and in fact the mall in general are going, sales are down this year. People are pulling back, so that you would normally see a big spike after Thanksgiving. People would buy luxury products for Christmas, and it's still happening, but it's not happening the way it has done in previous years this year.
Yeah, I went to a Tudor event where they were this week in downtown Orlando, and the event worked out really well because they were managing to sell things face to face, but they were telling me that there'd definitely been a decline. I suppose as well, Tudor hasn't released anything recently, have they? I know it's in their cycle, but it was pitched as a novelty show, but there wasn't actually any. It was just the stuff that you see in the store. I thought they might have some vintage pieces there, but Brassic Times saying the high Swiss franc makes Swiss exports more expensive. But Dave, you're saying it went down. It's less.
Remember, they're having to buy currency in order to buy product, because that's the primary driver.
Yeah. So
it's the cost of import against a declining Swiss franc. So if your currency depreciates by 30% and you're buying something in dollars, for example, if it costs 1 Swiss franc, now it's 130 to buy the same product, and that always gets passed on. Any business does that. It's just how often they choose to do it, whether it's every 3 months, every 6 months, but every business will do that.
Yeah, because the rate has changed so rapidly over a short period, they're not waiting the same length of time. They used to have a good degree of stability in the market in terms of the Swiss franc was pegged against the US dollar, and it was depegged a few years ago, and then it suddenly got pretty interesting in terms of how it's been fluctuating.
Yeah. SJ saying Bitcoin fixes all of this, but a Bitcoin, they need to the rampant. I've got Bitcoin and the rampant, everything, the FTX and stuff like that. There's other stuff that manipulates the Bitcoin market, unfortunately. But anyway,
you just said
Pete.
Can I just ask Dave? He said that you thought prices could double within 12 months. Do you think that's right?
You think like a Speedmaster, for example, could be 10?
Well, if you look, and I'm talking about 12 months from now, where it was maybe in 2018, 2019. Yeah.
Right.
So if you look, for example, back in 2019, 2020, a Speedmaster in the UK was circa £4,500, and a lot of them now are pushing towards £7,000-8,000. So we're really not that far away from them being almost double the price they were a mere 3-4 years ago. So within a 5-year cycle, something doubling in price. There's not that many other goods have doubled in price in that kind of scale.
If it's over a 5-year cycle, that's looking at a 15 or 20% on average per year price increase. But it's going to be steeper than that, because over the first couple of years it wasn't. So it's going to be scary, and unfortunately they'll price a lot of people out of that sort of product.
They're kind of biting themselves in the backside, aren't they? I've talked about.
They don't have a choice.
Yeah, but for example, the Speedmaster. The people that I know that have had Speedmasters for a long time, they bought it because they were like engineers, or I know a guy who's got one that somebody bought it as a college. When he left college or whatever. Same with Rolex, isn't it? Rolex is known as, hey, the life event watch, but it's hard to get. And also, I mean, this won't affect Rolex, but I'm just saying you're missing that cycle of, oh, I got it as a gift, because now you're looking at a date just that's like $9,000. It's a hell of a gift, isn't it, for somebody graduating college, unless you're absolutely, wadded. Cool. Pete, welcome. Can you hear
Right.
us
I was
okay?
looking at, I was looking real quick.
Oh, you're on mute though,
Okay.
Pete. You're on mute. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Nope.
Oh, no.
Still can't hear you, Pete.
Oh.
Nope.
Oh, no.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Can we hear you? Wow.
Okay. I'm terribly sorry. I'm probably going to sound terrible. The only mic I could get to work on the fly is the actual embedded mic in the laptop. So,
well,
I am using a headphone, so at least you're not getting that horrible echoing.
Yeah, no worries. Well, as the number one comment we usually get is about the audio. At least it gives somebody can interact in the comment section. But yeah, it doesn't sound too bad, Pete. But Pete, did you have a trend that you think's dying or on the up for next year, for 2024?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's been said, but I think two-tone has run its race. I think two-tone is the new bronze. That for a while, every watch company that brought out a new watch, or pretty much every watch company that keeps current that brought out a new watch, was bringing out a version in bronze. And it was kind of like had become something of a standard. Now that's shrunk back, and now bronze hasn't gone away. It's not died, but it's retreated back into a little niche. I think that that was sort of 2020, 2021. I think two-tone has gone through that same cycle and is just about to retreat back into its niche. That it is interesting that when Rolex introduced, for example, the reintroduced their new Explorer, they brought out with they came out with the steel and then the two-tone, and everyone was super excited. And everyone was going, this is going to be massive. And very quickly they were available at retail. They trade at below retail on places like Chrono 24. And I think everyone's picked up that two-tone was a trend that people were pushing that's kind of done. So I don't think it's going to go away. There are people who genuinely like it. But it'll be a thing that happens occasionally, not the big fashion trend that I think Hodinkee wanted it to be.
It was very popular in sort of 2020, 2021, wasn't it, when they introduced the Explorer in two-tone? And
I think at the time that the Explorer was released in two-tone, that was like the peak of popularity of two-tone. Yeah. That's when people were thinking, this is going to be the thing. And as I said, that watch wasn't a massive success. It's still sold because it's a Rolex. But it was routine. You could walk into, there's two or three places in Melbourne that sell Rolexes. Nothing's ever available except two-tone Explorers.
Yeah, that's wild. Because I quite like the two-tone GMT that they bought out, because they bought a new two-tone out, didn't they, in Watches and Wonders this year, the GMT.
Yeah. Oh, and don't get me wrong, it's not going to vanish like bronze. Bronze hasn't vanished. It's just become niche. It's every now and then there's a version of a watch in two-tone. Not every watch has a two-tone version, and it's something that's front and center.
Yeah, that's a great point. Cool. Okay, so we've kind of juggled up the squares a little bit, but Mark, is there a brand that you think's on the up or on the down that you had for your second one?
Well, I'll pick Christopher Ward as a brand on the up.
Correct.
Well, that's what I said in the comments earlier. So I'd better stick to my story. They've been, growing incrementally over time. They hit their popular stride. So for the non-Christopher Ward diehards, they were a brand that was worthy of ignoring. Bel Canto in 2022 rescued 2022 for them. I think their designs in 2022 were just poor homages of stuff that had come out before. Bel Canto put them on the map, and the 12 kept them there. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can carry on riding that wave for 2024. I don't think they can go back into just being a dive watch brand again. They've moved away from that, but they've got to stay on top of the wave, sell as many Bel Cantos as they can make, keep on introducing variations on the 12, and that will hopefully carry them forward and keep them in the consciousness as their design and watches evolve.
Yeah, I think you're right. And as well, I think a lot of people, because you noticed whenever I used to do a Christopher Ward video, there was a lot of people that didn't like the name on the dial. I mean, I have a Christopher Ward with the name on the dial. I like it, but I think when they changed I've got a video on why they had the name on the dial. There was a specific reason. They weren't just doing it for, just.
It was IP.
Yeah, it was IP.
Trademark IP. Yep.
I think that allowed the design to be more encompassing then, didn't it? I think you wouldn't have the 12. You couldn't possibly imagine a 12 that had Christopher Ward written on the dial.
Yeah, wouldn't work.
Yeah, the twin flags really brought it together. I think you're right. I think next year is going to be quite an exciting time for Christopher Ward. And when we went to Wind Up Watch Fair, and that first day, everyone just made a beeline straight for the Christopher Ward stand, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's and of course they are very good in their own subtle way of telegraphing the next exciting thing. So if you're signed up for their mailing list and you get their in-house magazine, and you're willing to read between the lines and do some educated guesswork, you can understand what's coming. And they will have, I think, one very exciting limited edition model next year that hopefully will carry them forward again.
Yeah, awesome. No, good point. All right, I'll go to Thomas, then Todd, then me, and then I'll go to Dave, and then Pete. Thomas, your brand on the up.
My brand, not on the up, but I don't know whether it's going to stay static or decline a bit more. And that's Blancpain. Relying mainly on their 50 fathoms. I don't see their dress watches, the Villeray, selling hugely with so many of the brands to choose from, such as JLC, Glasses Original, and many of the brands like that doing good dress watches at cheap prices or similar prices. The collaboration with Swatch on the 50 fathom scuba swatch hasn't had as much traction as the Moon Swatch did. I mean, after the Moon Swatch, sales of the Speedmaster went up 50% because it was an accessible watch. But the prices of the 50 fathoms, we're talking $16,000 or so, aren't we? So that won't have the same effect as the Moon Swatch did on the Moon Watch, on the Speedmaster. And even the Swatch paints haven't taken off that much. The popularity, I mean, the Moon Swatch was the first of its type, the collaboration in the Swatch group with another brand, with Swatch. And it was really people queuing outside the doors and, chaos going on and people fighting over who's going to get one. And with this scuba, the Blancpain scuba, there's been none of that. They're in the shops now, and they are available. And I can see Blancpain basically lingering in the Shadowlands in 2024.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah, I think you're right about the Swatch collab, because if I actually queued for a bit, but then I queued for about an hour and then I wasn't bothered. But if I had been able to buy one online, I would have bought one there and then. And I'm not even bothered now. I'm not even I've walked past that Swatch store a number of times and I've not bothered to go in. But if they'd been available on, I know I've harped on about this for a long time, but I would have bought one day one and would have had it. Like, but now I'm not even that bothered. I wonder if anybody else. But I know you're talking more about Blancpain, and perhaps it didn't get the jolt of adrenaline from the scuba as everyone else. I don't know anybody else. I don't often look at Blancpain as a.
That just answers your question here. You didn't look at Blancpain at all. Probably never even thought about them 12 months ago. And I think the great mistake is to imagine that Swatch was trying to get the same result, ever expected that they'd get the same result from the Blancpain as the Moon Swatch. So if you compare the two, you're going to draw the wrong conclusion. My sort of gut feel is Swatch Group had lightning in a bottle with Moon Swatch. They had to massively increase production. They're now able to produce 1 million a year, but they know they can't produce them. They're not going to sell 1 million Moon Swatches every year. They'll sell maybe 700,000, maybe 600,000. So what do you do with that extra capacity? What you do is you feed in niche watches that will fill that up. So the expectation that the Moon Swatch and the Blanc Swatch would swap is, I think, misplaced. I think, and if I'm looking here at the performance of the resale performance of 50 Fathoms on Chrono 24 over the last 12 months since the introduction of the Moon Swatch, the Blancpain Swatch. Yep. And at about the time that happened, prices jumped on average $1,500 to $2,000 and have stayed higher that entire time, even while the rest of the market's begun to decline. So I think what you're seeing there is the Moon, it hasn't, if you're looking for that adrenaline hit that drives a Blancpain somewhere new, no, you're not going to see it. I don't think Swatch ever thought they would. I think what it's done, though, is people that never spoke about the brand are now talking about the brand. People that would never have thought about going there are now looking at watches, buying secondhand, buying watches off the secondary market. And this is a rare thing, a profitable marketing campaign.
Yeah, it is interesting because maybe the secondhand market is that, because I think what always put me off about Blancpain was that Blancpain was the new prices to me seemed expensive for what you were getting. The watch might be worth it, but you've got the JLC Polaris in that slightly cheaper than the Blancpain 50 Fathom was, and to me, aesthetically, and the story behind the Polaris, I prefer it more of a Blancpain. So if I was going to get that, I would probably go with a Polaris. So maybe people were searching for actual Blancpain, thinking, "Oh, actually, I didn't realize they were that expensive," and then maybe going to the second hand. Obviously, conjecture there, but
I think there's also an element of, don't forget, the Polaris was a terrible seller for a long time too, so it wasn't doing particularly well. And I think something else that we need to be careful of is turning at this level, thinking that the decision isn't either or. At the kinds of money we're talking about, like I own a Polaris and I will own a 50 Fathoms, and I will own them both. It's just a matter of when. So I think we fall into the mistake of comparing a Seamaster and a Submariner and saying one is the winner and one will sell and one won't. And if you dig into that a little bit and look at the people on social media, for example, that own a Submariner, 75% of them own a Speedmaster as well, a Seamaster as well. It's not an either or decision. These aren't cars.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah. Good point. No, that was a great one, Thomas. Okay, so Todd, did you have a brand that's on the up or on the downer?
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I'm looking at it now. I think I really, really, really like what Longsheens is doing right now. I think they've tapped into their heritage really well. I think all their offerings, I'm looking at them now, they're simplified. Like buying an Omega is awfully difficult because you've got so many, unless you know what you're doing, right? You might want a Constellation. What's the difference between that and a Seamaster, like the classic Seamaster versus this and that?
Or a Constellation versus a Globemaster,
yeah,
et cetera. Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. What's the value differential? Why are these priced the way they are? It's just very confusing. But I'm just looking at the Longines website right now, and heck, if I want a compressor style diver, there's a Legend Diver, very nice, beautiful, and reasonably priced compared to the upswing in prices like Dave was talking about. If I want Hydro Conquest, the GMT, $2,700, then that's retail. That's retail. Their flagship Heritage, they have this flyback chronographs. If I was in the mood to buy a really, really nice Brigade kind of like dress watch, their Master Collection at 38.5 millimeters, $2,500. And they're getting a lot of special treatment out of Swatch. They get their own movements, or modified movements rather. And I think, and considering their sales volume, so when I was looking at their sales volume, so they sold in 2020, they were 1.2 billion Swiss francs. They sold 1.7 million units, by far the greatest of any one of the top 10. Rolex being 1.2 million in second place. I really think that they're priced right. I think, if I had to go buy, like if I wanted, like somebody else mentioned, right, the one watch for graduation, or for that new job, or for the baby that my first son, or something like that. I could go right in to a Longines, somebody holding Longines or carrying Longines, and pick up a really nice watch for a reasonable, such as these are, sum of money. Get something that I think that would work. And so anyhow, I just really like what they're doing and how they're placing themselves. How I think Swatch doesn't do blank pawn any favors. I don't think in general. They don't know what to do with some. They have so many sub models. I don't think they necessarily know where to put them all. And it depends on what part of the world as to what something fits, like whether a glycine fits here, or Rado fits over there, in Asia or what have you. Longines just seems to be doing just well across the board. So anyhow, I think they're going to continue doing some very good things. My opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the heritage range that Longines do is absolutely amazing. It's great, great price point. And such a wide selection of watches in that heritage range.
And I'm adopting the Pete. I was going to say I'm adopting the Pete McConville philosophy. So in other words, you're right. They're a great price point, but I don't think of them as value. I think that you get a lot of, let's say, luxury at that price point. I'm disregarding the value proposition if it's not something, let's say, under $1,000.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is what you said there, Thomas, which is we in the West and we social media folk tend to go nuts over the heritage collection, and we kind of ignore the modern stuff, the master collection. Mm-hmm. In Asia, which is 50% of the market, it is entirely the reverse. They have no time at all for the heritage collection, and they love the master collection. And I think one of the things that was holding them back for a long time is they were essentially two different companies selling two different sets of watches. And with the Spirit collection, they've joined those two together. The Spirit is, I understand, selling extremely well in both markets. And a little bit like a brand I'm going to talk about later, I think Longines has found a way to kind of fuse their two sides. And if you look at,
I was about to say
done something. Sorry, go on.
I was about to say they've done something not the same as Breitling, but they've found a way, as the way Breitling did, to acknowledge their heritage and bring something modern to it as well. And that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah,
right. When I bought my Big Eye, I got this really nice book, and it's really well put together, going through their heritage. And, I think that they know what they're doing. Seiko has lost that sometimes, which drives me crazy, but Longines seems to have it.
So, Sam, what does the panel think on what Sam D's saying here? I think since Oris increased their prices, Longines got a chunk of their market share too, and other brands in the same price range, they're making great watches.
Possibly, but it's not like Oris is that big a player in the market. So, Oris is probably 1% of the Swiss market, less than 1%, Dave. If they lost 20% of their market share, it's 0.15% moving around. No, I sometimes think that it's less about taking market share off a company and rather convincing people that might have already been buying your watches to buy more watches. And so I think that's what Longines have done. They've found a way of getting people that were kind of in that market already, A, to buy more watches, and B, to spend more on them. I think you're seeing that people are more willing to buy a $2,000, $3,000 Longines now, whereas in the past it might have been they bought $1,200 quartz watches.
But I think Longines have done this by being product-led. I don't know that their marketing has suddenly upped the game, but the product certainly has. I think this is a product-led revival, which is great.
It is, but I reckon the marketing led the product.
Okay.
As in, I don't think some designer sat down, a little bit like I don't think Gerald Genter sat down out of nowhere and said, let's create the Royal Oak. History has shown that what happened was a company took to him the results of marketing research and said, we need a watch like this, and he created it. I think the same thing happened at Longines.
So that's a proper definition of marketing, where marketing defines the potential market, and then you have to meet the demand.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
The traditional definition of marketing.
Yeah, the TAM.
And bear in mind, Longines' biggest problem is they are very reliant on the Chinese market. They sell around 1.7 million watches a year.
Right.
They sell 40% more watches a year than Rolex do. And everyone goes, oh, Rolex are the big boys. Longines sell way more watches than Rolex do. Their turnover is still in the billions. It's lower than Rolex because their average selling point is low, but they have a massive dependent on the Chinese market. And the Chinese market, I need to be careful of my language here, isn't doing so well. It sounds a lot like duct, but it's not that. And it's completely and utterly in a disastrous state at the moment. All brands are really struggling in China. Right. And that's a lead into probably what I think is going to decline.
Yeah. So I'll go very quickly. Yeah. I'll go real quickly, and then Dave, you can go, and then we'll go to Pete to end this out. My one that I think's on the up for next year is I'm going to go right to the sort of entry level of the market, but I think Timex is going to produce some more cool stuff. They produce a lot of cool things at the moment in the $200 to $300 price range. They do really good sales as well. So if you get like a cheeky 30% off sale, and it seems to be one of the few brands, Casio maybe a little bit, that are having fun with like their watches. You could see yourself just being a collector that collects Timex, because there's doing a lot of new and interesting things come out from them. I think last year the Timex Q series is an example of that. They've done some great titanium watches last year, the Expedition watches, and they're accessible. Also, there's that thrill of the hunt where you can buy them on their website, or if you hunt around Amazon, you can always, you can find little discount codes, or you can find, them selling cheaper fun at that entry level market. And you could really have 5 Timex watches that look nothing, completely different than each other. And I don't think there's many brands, maybe the from Seiko and Casio, that you really can do that with, where you can get such a diverse looking, and it's okay to take a punt on some of the weird looking ones, because you're not having to outlay a lot of money on them, which I think is pretty cool. But that was mine. Dave, go on, your last one.
Most brands will decline in the next 2 years. Okay. Now, it depends what you say decline by. If you talk numbers, sales numbers are dropping for all of them. And some of them are being quite open about it. Others are being a bit more coy about it. Obviously, you've got prices increasing, numbers coming down. So to a degree, turnover and profits will not be impacted or be showing as quickly, but numbers are absolutely dropping. And they will continue to drop for a few years. China, as a market, which has been one of the world's largest for many years, is in an absolute state for many reasons. Europe and the US is definitely soft. India is one of the few premium markets that's growing, but it's still tiny in relative terms. There's more rich people in India now buying watches than there have ever been, but in relative numbers, it's still literally like urine in the ocean, not that much. So that is a diehard fact. It will take a little time for that to filter through to impact on their top and bottom lines, but sure enough, it will eventually begin to have that negative impact on it over the coming 2-3 years. And it'll be, as I say, it will be interesting to see. I guarantee you next year they'll all be reporting figures that are up percentage-wise in turnover for this year, but their numbers will definitely be down.
Yeah, and it's going to be it's usually the middle, isn't it, that suffers a lot. The mid luxury instead of high end or low end that kind of suffers.
It'll also be the top end as well, albeit maybe not to the same extent or to the same percentage level, but sure enough, they will all. And you're seeing it now in the supply chain. Huge numbers of brands are cutting back by unbelievable numbers. I can give you a figure without any brands or anything for a brand who makes buckles and clasps, downscaled their production from 15 million to 3.5 million for next year.
And what's going to be what do you think is going to be the net result of that? I mean, other than obviously their profits declining, but do you think we're going to see things like there'll be less experimentation with watches, less brands taking a punt on?
You'll see less releases, because the big talk within the industry at the moment is the glut of stock. There is huge volumes of unsold inventory. So they can't devalue that to any great extent, or they don't want to for sure. So they will just pull back. They will pull back on new launches, new models, new color iterations, etc., etc. You'll always still see those few super high-end, punchy, piece uniques, limited editions of 10, all of these things, the things that make the headlines. Sure, they'll still happen, but that selling to the rarefied air, that's a whole different world. But you'll see already there's some of the major brands. There was stuff meant to have launched in the last 2 months that has been pushed into Q1, Q2 for next year, just because they've thought, let's just not launch it now. Let's just keep it in the bag. That's you'll see much less innovation. Maybe some of the low end brands, the Christopher Wards of this world, will still probably get pushy with some interesting things. They've got a much more accessible price point, and they're trying to evolve as a business in that area. But all your big boys, your LVMH group, your Richemont group, your Swatch group, it will be a quiet year.
And yeah, and also, do you think that? Yeah, sort of there'll be less experimentation, but also I wonder whether the grey, because they've done a good job of like telling the grey market to keeping the grey market at arm's length, aren't they? Because you always used to be able to buy Breitling on like Joma Shop and stuff like that. Do you think that'll start coming back, because that definitely got restricted? You don't think, Pete?
I don't think so.
I think
they've changed. I think they've changed the structure of the market to prevent that.
And they've learned from COVID how to cut production.
As Dave just said, they've cut production.
Yeah, and also loads of these brands, the Joma Shops of this world, in the most part, where were they getting their stock? They were getting it from a oversupplied authorized dealer network, where brands, your Omegas, your Swatchy groups, your whoever they are from the big groups, selling to third-party businesses, retail chains, retail businesses, who couldn't afford to sit on volume, because every year that brand comes back and says, you will be buying all of this new stuff if you want to maintain your dealership. They have not got bottomless pits of money, so they would offload old or excess inventory to the third-party channel, the Joma shops, the clearance houses, and etc. of this world. More and more of the brands now have got such a tight grip on their supply chain, cutting out ADs where they can, going direct to boutiques or going direct with partnership boutiques. Then they've got control over their inventory, and they will not let consciously that inventory move into those channels because it's not in their interest.
The other segment of the market that has really taken the other segment of the, if you like, the supply chain that's been decimated over the last couple of years are the third-party distributors, the distributors that sat between the OEMs and the ADs, and they were they were a huge source of the stuff that went onto the grey market because it was kind of uncontrolled, and they could, there was one distributor who owned, say, for example, Breitling for all of the United States. And so if they didn't treat the brand well, then they could dump tens of thousands of watches. When the brands deal directly with the ADs, if an AD dumps, it's a couple hundred watches. So you don't have that massive effect. And that's what I was sort of saying before. The market has been restructured to prevent the kind of mass wholesaling that used to happen. It'll still occur, and there'll still be massive bargains that pop up, but they won't be systemic.
Yeah, so Brassy Time says
primarily because there's such a amount of volume of stock still in the supply chain that needs to be gutted.
There was a jeweler that was local to me that was selling its Breitling stock at 30 to 40% off. But that was because they'd lost the rights to sell Breitling, and they just didn't care. But as you say, Pete, that's a limited number of models that they held in stock and a limited number of each model. That no one notices that.
Yeah, I got a solid gold watch at less than half price in the same circumstance where an AD had lost that brand. And the brand was never coming back. So there's no, the bridge didn't exist to burn.
So, well, Pete, do you want to bring this home then? What's your brand or something that you think is either on the rise or decline?
I was with Todd. I was teetering on Longines, but I've gone with Tag. I think and pretty much everything you can say about Longines, you would also say about Tag. Tag for so long has been two independent companies, two cousins that didn't like each other very much, Tag and Heuer. And exactly like Longines, there was the money makers that watch people didn't like, and then there were the few watches that watch people liked but didn't sell to normies. Through 2023, Tag, like Longines, has found a way to merge those two things together. They've started making watches that normies and enthusiasts love. They've come up with product lines that merge kind of the excitement of what Tag can bring with the sort of more traditional Heuer looks. So things like the glass box Carreras were, for my mind, some of the first true Tag Heuer watches. They were a true amalgamation of those two cultures. And I think it's weird because for a lot of us, we look at the Arnault kids being injected into these companies as a sign that LVMH doesn't really take them seriously. But in France, it's actually the opposite. What it means in France, it's really big. If you really want to change a company, if you really want to take that company somewhere, you'll put someone in that you trust, and you don't trust anyone like family. And so if you look at the brands where Arnault children have been put in, LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Tag, and there's another one, and slipped my mind for a second. They're the brands that are moving. They're the brands that are making big changes.
Yeah, because I think in the US we're trained that if the kids get involved, like the Trump kids that are getting hauled through court at the moment. But I actually, to be honest, again, Tag wasn't really something that factors for me. I really like the skipper. But Mark, I've been at more than a few times this week. I've looked at that titanium solargraph that you pointed out.
I just went window shopping, and a couple of weeks ago there was a new tag boutique, and the solargraph, very, very impressive little watch.
Great pricing as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as good as the Citizen at the same price, but it's a great little watch if you like that style.
I'd probably own a glass box right now if only it wasn't too small. They are very small watches. So the Porsche one, the special edition, that's actually 2 millimeters bigger, and that's proper size. But it's got
it relates to Porsche, and no one wants that. No one with taste, anyway.
Yeah. So Junior's put a comment. Yeah, if Tag Heuer would get rid of the name Tag, I'd be more interested. I mean, they have done that where they've only put Heuer, haven't they? But there's a whole generation.
Octavius, yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole generation now, including the son of LVMH,
who
were never even alive when it was Heuer, were they? I mean, what was it, 85 or something when they got bought?
They only use the Heuer when they're doing a reproduction of an older brand. It's like when Breitling does a reproduction of their one of their 1-to-1 reproductions of the 806, and then they'll use the old like typefaces, or they'll use the old logos of that time. It's the same thing. Tag is the company Tag Heuer has been a big successful company for longer than Heuer was a big successful company. Not a watchmaker, but a big successful one that we all thought about. Heuer didn't exist very long.
Yeah. And Heuer were never really as big or successful as people like to pretend. They had some classic watches, but they were never a big watchmaker.
Kind of like Universal Genève, but that's a completely different culture.
Oh, that's a show on its own, Pete, that you really
I missed that one.
Yeah, well, maybe we could do it. Okay.
I tried to do my Pete impression for that, but you do it better.
Well, that's been a really cool show. Any final one? Anything we missed? Any special mentions that we didn't cover for anything? No, I think we covered it all. Awesome.
I think we're good.
Well, I think the next.
Don't forget to upvote.
Yeah, don't forget to upvote. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Very much appreciated. I think next Sunday is Christmas Eve, so we'll see how we'll play it. But very much appreciate everyone in the comments. Big thanks to the panel, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.